What's up guys, this is Eric Vasquez here with a brand new tutorial for you today from designcuts.com. Now in this tutorial we'll be creating a clean and elegant wedding invitation in Photoshop. We're going to do this using some beautiful watercolor illustrations from GraphicBox that you can find in the all-new Create and Make design bundle. Now along with this we'll be using a small handful of free typefaces and elements from the Wedding 3 Mockup scene creator from the Design Cuts marketplace. Now if you're all ready to march down the aisle, then fire up Photoshop and let's get started. The first thing we're going to do here is create a new document, and I'm going to give my document a name. I'm just going to call it Wedding Invitation Design. And then we're going to change the units of measurement here from pixels to inches, make our document 5 inches wide by 7 inches tall. The resolution, color mode, and background contents are fine. Then go ahead and click Create. Now, once we're inside here, the first thing we're going to do is click on the adjustment layer icon and add a solid color adjustment layer. For the hex color, let's go ahead and enter the value F4F1dB, and then go ahead and press return. Now that we've done that, we can just go ahead and scrap our background layer. We no longer need it. And then from here, we're going to come up to the File menu and choose Place Embedded so that we can import our first freebie. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to be using a few elements here from GraphicBox. The first one we're going to open is Flower Wreath 2. So go ahead and click Place, or just press Enter or Return on the keyboard. And then you will notice that we have our file imported here. And it automatically comes in as a smart object, which is great. Now, all we're going to do here is rotate this counterclockwise until we've got our wreath upright, basically like this. Okay, and then what we're going to do from here is move our cursor over any of the 4 corners of the bounding box and drag outwards while holding Alt, Option, and Shift on the keyboard. Once we've done that, let's just go ahead and move this down a little bit. We're going to hold the Control key and click on the image, come down here to the bottom of the menu here, and we're going to choose Flip Vertical, and then hold Control and click again and choose Flip Horizontal. So we can basically just change the orientation of our wreath here. All right, and then we're just going to move it around a little bit, maybe slide it over to the right, and then once you're happy with the size and positioning of this bottom portion of the wreath, press Return on the keyboard. And I'm only focusing on the bottom for right now because we're going to position the top separately. As you can see, the wreath isn't quite tall enough to reach the top of our document, so we're just going to focus on one part at a time. Now what I'm going to do is press M on the keyboard to get my rectangular marquee tool, click and drag a rectangular selection around the bottom portion of the design, and then click on the Add Layer Mask icon here. Now select the layer, press Command J to duplicate it, hold the Control key and click on the layer mask of this duplicate layer, and choose Delete Layer Mask. Now I'll press Command Control T on the keyboard to do a free transform, click, hold the Shift key, and move this up so we can now focus on the top portion of the wreath. And I'm just going to reposition it a little bit here, move it up a bit, something like that, and then go ahead and press Return on the keyboard. Now we'll do the same thing. Press M once again, click and drag to make a rectangular selection around the top portion, and then click on the Add Layer Mask icon once again. So we now have our floral wreath in position. Now what I'm going to do is select this top wreath here, hold the Shift key and select the Color Fill Adjustment layer, and then you can either click on this group folder icon or press Command Control plus G to put it into a new group folder, and we're just going to call that folder Background. Now go ahead and add another new layer and then press T on the keyboard. And that's going to give us our type tool. So what we're going to do is just click here and we're going to type out, please join us for the wedding of, okay, and then what I want to do is come up to the window menu here to get my character panel and just choose character. All right, and there you go. Now I'm going to click inside this text box here to highlight the text, and I'm going to change the typeface here to a font called Chapaza. Okay, and this is a free typeface which you guys can download from dafont.com, and there's a link for this font in the written portion of the tutorial. Now what I want to do here in the character panel is change the size to 9.55 and increase the tracking to about 180 to spread the letters out. Now let's also click on the color here to set the text color, and I can enter the hex value 316443 on the keyboard, and then go ahead and click OK. All right, so we now have our text. Let's go ahead and just drag this over into the middle section here, and you can see it kind of snapped right into place there. Now before we move on, I might want to see how it looks if I just flip this wreath the other way around. So I'm going to come into the background folder real quick, select the top wreath, hold shift and select the bottom one, press Command Control T on the keyboard, hold the Control key and click, and then choose flip vertical. All right, now I kind of dig the way that looks a little bit more. So what I want to do is just kind of tap this down to make sure that our entire canvas is filled with this nice floral wreath. And if you guys want to move this around, you'll notice that there's a little link here in between the smart object and the mask. So if you remove that link, you can now kind of move the floral wreath around independently of the layer mask, if that makes sense. All right, and you can do the same thing here on the bottom. Just make sure that you put the link back after you're done repositioning it. Okay, in case you wanted to maybe rotate it a little bit more or adjust it however you like. All right, maybe I'll just move it up a couple clicks there. All right, and then I'm going to put that link back and close that folder. Now I'll press T again on the keyboard to click inside my text layer here. And then what I want to do is come up to the top toolbar and choose this icon that says Create Warped Text. We're going to change the style to arc, make sure we have a horizontal bend of about 55, and then go ahead and press Return on the keyboard. All right, and now you can see that we have our nice kind of arced text here on the top. Now let's come back up to the File menu for a second, and we're going to choose Place Embedded once again. And this time we'll go ahead and import the Flower Bouquet 10.png file and choose Place. Now hold the Alt option and Shift key and drag inwards from any of the four corners of the bounding box. Then click, hold the Shift key, and slide it up so that we can position it underneath our arced text. Now let's go ahead and create another new layer. Press T to get your text tool again, and this time I'm going to type out a lowercase j. I'll press Command Control A to select the text, come over to my character panel, and this time I'm going to change it to Molly Ornaments Regular. Now I should just mention here, guys, that Molly is one of the typefaces that you will find in the full bundle, but there are some very nice alternatives that I've provided in the write-up for this tutorial. But for this particular part right here, we're just using an ornament, so any kind of free, vector ornament or flourish will do. Now, once you have your flourish, for this, I'm just going to continue with Molly Ornaments for now, but I'm going to make a few adjustments here. I'm going to change the fill color to maybe more of a gold. Let's try B19, A48. Oops, A48, there we go. Click OK. And now let's also go ahead and make this a bit larger. So I'll make it 41.14 points. Grab my Move tool, press Command Control T, and then I'm just going to drag this up here to the side of the floral bouquet. Now, once you're happy with the position here, press Command Control J to duplicate it, then Command Control T to do a free transform, hold the Control key and click, and choose Flip Horizontal. Now I'm going to click, hold the Shift key, and drag this over to the opposite side. All right, so we now have our two nice flourishes on both sides of the bouquet, just underneath our arched type. And that's looking pretty cool. All right, so now I'm going to select that top copy there, hold the Shift key and select the text just above the background group folder, and then press Command Control G or click on this folder once again to put it into a new group folder. Now I'm going to double click on the Group 1 text and just change this to Please Join Us, just so we know what is inside of that folder. All right, now let's move on and go ahead and create another new layer. Press T to get your type tool again, click, and this time I'm going to type out the name Amanda in upper and lowercase. So as you can see, I need to change my font here. This time I'm just going to use the regular style of Molly Script Regular, all right, which is a really nice kind of hand-drawn cursive typeface. Very, very nice. And some of the recommendations that I gave you guys in the written portion of the tutorial do look pretty similar to this, so be sure to check those out just so you guys can follow along. And if you want this exact typeface, again, as I mentioned, you will have to purchase the full design bundle. But it's totally worth it. There's a lot of great stuff in this one. Now once I've typed this out here, I'm going to change the size to 91.73, and then let's go ahead and change the color to 1E6846. All right, and then click OK or press Return on the keyboard. Now with this typeface, if you select certain characters, you'll see that you have some alternatives here. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe try one of these other alternatives here for the lowercase a on the end. And then I'm just going to tap this over a bit, move it down, get rid of that little pop-up there. and just position this, roughly visually in the center. Now, once I'm happy with the placement here, I'll press Command-Control-J to duplicate it, then Command-Control in the left bracket to move it down below that layer. Hold the Shift key and then the down arrow to move it down. Press T once again, highlight the text, and this time I'm going to change it so that it reads Jason. Now, again, I'll select just the N on the end here, and maybe we can try another one of these alternatives. So let's see what it looks like if we maybe go with this, or maybe the nice kind of underline here. You guys can get creative with this and try some different things out until you find something that you like. And a lot of these type of fonts usually do have alternatives available. All right, so now let's go ahead and create another new layer. Press T once again, click, and this time I'm going to type out an ampersand that looks just like that, but I'm going to change the typeface. So I'm going to select it, highlight it, however you want to do that, come back over to the character panel, and now I'm going to change this to a typeface called Fog Lighten number 6 Regular. All right, and this is another font that is free that you guys can find the download link for in the written portion of the tutorial. Now I'm going to change the size of this, make it a little bit smaller by making it 65.25. And then I'll also use the same fill color that we used for our ornaments before, which was B19A48. And go ahead and click OK. Grab your Move tool, press Command-Control-T to do a free transform. And then I'm just going to move this up in between both of the names here. All right, give it a little bit of breathing room. Move Jason down a bit. And there we go. Now we have our two names in place. And just to keep things nice and neat, what I want to do now is select Jason, hold the Shift key, select Amanda, and then press Command-Control-G to put it into a group folder. And I'm just going to name this folder Amanda and Jason. Keep it very simple, straightforward, and easy to identify. All right, and if you want to, what we can do now is select that top folder, hold Shift and select the Please Join Us folder, and then come up here to the top toolbar and choose this option that says Align Horizontal Centers. That's just going to make sure that everything is nice and aligned. Now I'm going to add another new layer, grab my type tool once again, and this time I'm going to type out Saturday in all caps. Press Command-Control-A to highlight the text, and then we're going to return to our first free typeface, the Chapazza regular font. And let's go ahead and maybe make it a bit smaller so that we can actually see it by changing it to about 8.3. Okay, and then for the tracking, I'm going to spread these letters out, change the tracking setting to about 260, and I also want to change the color here. So I'm going to make the fill color maybe that nice green color from before, which is 1E6846. Okay, grab your Move tool, press Command-Control-T, move this over here in the middle, and then let's zoom in a little bit just so we can get a better look at our text. Press T to get the Type tool, come after the Y in Saturday, and then press Return. Now for this line, I'm going to type out the date, August 28, 2018, hold the Alt-Option key and press the number 8 on the keyboard to get that nice little bullet, and then type in the time, 4:30 p.m. All right, so this is the same font that we're using before. We want to use the same typeface here for everything. So let me just go ahead and make sure that we're doing that, because it looks like our time is a different font here. All right, so let me just select the time and make sure that we go back to our free Chapazza font. Okay, now what I want to do is press Command-Control-A to select all so that I can grab both lines of text here. And then I'm going to hold the Alt-Option key and tap the up arrow a few times, and that's going to reduce the amount of space in between these two lines. You can also do that manually over here in the character panel, right where it says set the leading. All right, so we're going to leave it set to about 12.71. All right, and then we're going to select the second line here, and let's make it a little bit smaller. I'll make it about 7.8, just a bit smaller than that first line. Come up here, grab your Move tool, hold the Shift key, and tap this up a few times. And then press Command-Control-J to duplicate it, Command-Control in the left bracket to move that layer down, and then hold the Shift key and the down arrow to move this copy down. Now grab your Type tool, select the first line of text here, the Saturday text, and we're going to type in the lodge. Now for the second line, what I want to do is type in the address. So let's say 87 Cardinal Ave, make another bullet here, Alt-Option and 8, Boston, MA. Now you can see we're running into the same issue here where basically because we don't have a bullet available for this font, it's reverting to Helvetica. So what we want to do is just select Boston MA here and change it from Helvetica back to our regular font. Okay, and that's looking pretty good. Now, another option here is to select this second line and maybe reduce the space in between the characters just a little bit by holding Alt-Option and using the left and right arrows. And by doing that, we're reducing the tracking instead to 280. All right, so let me go ahead and do that with this first line as well, or you can do it manually in the character panel. Now I want to select both of these layers, tap them up a few times, and then I'll select only the bottom layer, the lodge layer, press Command-Control-J to duplicate it, Command-Control and the left bracket to move it down, and then press V to get your move tool, hold the Shift key, and tap it down with the down arrow. Now I'm going to grab my type tool once again, click inside here, press Command-Control-A to select all the text, and I'm going to type out RSVP by July 20. All right, with the same font, but we're going to make this even a little bit smaller. So now I'll make this about 6.4 point, just like that. And I might actually make this second line of text in here a little bit smaller as well. Maybe I'll go to 7.2, do the same for this first block of text for the second line only, change the size to 7.2. Okay, and now we have our 3 blocks of text. So from here I'm going to press U on the keyboard, and what that's going to do is switch over to my rectangle tool. Now you'll notice up here in the toolbar we have a fill, a stroke, and a shape. Now what we're concerned with here is the shape. We want to make sure that we have a rectangle, and then I'll click on the fill here, and click on this little box in the upper right here that looks like kind of a rainbow colored spectrum. Now I'm going to use the same hex value from before, which is B19A48, to get that nice gold color. And then I'm just going to click and drag out a thin rectangle that'll kind of serve as a divider in between these lines of text. And I can zoom in here, press Command-Control-T to do a free transform, click, hold the Control key, and now I have even more control over how thick or thin that line is. All right, and then I'm just going to position it roughly in the middle of those 2 blocks of text, and maybe make it a little bit less wide. So I'm just moving my cursor over the right or the left side until you see that left and right arrow. Click, hold the Alt-Option key so that it comes in from both sides, and then just drag inwards a little bit. And go ahead and press Return on the keyboard, then press Command-Control-J to duplicate it, hold Shift and press the down arrow to move it down. All right, so we now have our details and the date on the bottom along with these 2 nice dividers. So I'm going to select the top divider, scroll down a bit, hold the Shift key and select the RSVP by July 20th layer, and then click on the folder icon, double-click the Group 1 text, and change this to Date. Now, just to reorder these folders, I'm going to press Command-Control in the left bracket to move that down, select the Please Join Us text, and press Command-Control in the right bracket to move that up, so that now our folders are in the same order in which they appear on the invitation design itself. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is select this Please Join Us folder so that we're at the very top, and I'm going to come to the adjustment layer icon and add a levels adjustment. Now over here in the properties on the right side, what we're going to do is set the left slider to about 23. Let's go ahead and move this middle slider towards the left until it's set to about 1.42. And what that's going to do is just kind of boost the colors, brighten things up, and give us a little bit more contrast. You can kind of see the difference there as I turn that on and off. Okay, and then once you've done that, select the levels adjustment, hold the Shift key, select the background layer, and then press Command-Control-G to put all of these layers into a group folder, double-click the Group 1 text, and rename this layer Artwork. Now from here, we're pretty much done with our main invitation design, so be sure to save your work before moving on. Now, once you've saved your Photoshop file, we also want to go ahead and save a flattened version of this separately. So all we're going to do is come up here to this hamburger menu in the Layers palette, click on it, and choose Flatten Image. Now come up to File and choose Save As, and save it as a separate flattened version of your Photoshop file. Okay, so I'm just going to add a flattened on the end. All right, so that way we don't save over our original layered artwork. Now for this next part, we're going to come up to File and choose New to set up our new document so we can begin building a realistic looking mock-up for our invitation. And we're going to be adding a few other wedding related elements to this as well. So the first thing we're going to do here is give this one a name, Wedding Invitation Mockup, and then change the increments from inches to pixels, make the width 2400 and the height 2000. And then go ahead and press Enter to create your new document. All right, and I'm just moving these panels aside so that I can work here and see, so that I can see everything nice and clear. Now, just like we did earlier on, I'm going to select the adjustment layer icon and add a solid color adjustment layer. Now for the hex value this time, I'm going to enter a value of 726F5E, all right, which is kind of like grayish brown color. All right, go ahead and click OK there. And then what I want to do is come up to the File menu and choose Open. Now go to the freebies folder for this tutorial, and yours may look a little bit different than mine. And we're going to be looking for, we're looking for the background PSD file. All right, go ahead and click Open. Now I'm going to pull this tab down here just so that I can see it next to my main document. And what I want to do is grab this folder, or actually I don't even need the entire folder. I'm going to first expand the contents of the folder and grab layer 3. All right, now grab this layer and drag and drop it into my file. All right, now I can press Command Control and the tilde key, come over here and close the background because we only needed that one layer. All right, and then what I'm going to do is scrap the background layer, just drag it to the trash, double click on layer 1 and rename this layer Marble because it's kind of a marbly texture. And then let's go ahead and drop the opacity to 40% just by pressing the number 4 on the keyboard. And then we'll drop the fill to about 82%, just so it's, nice and subtle. Somewhere about there looks pretty good. And then I'm going to select the marble layer, hold Shift, select the solid color adjustment layer, press Command Control G on the keyboard, double click the Group 1 text, and put this into a folder of its own called Background. Now come back up to the File menu and choose Open again. This time we're going to open the card PSD file. Right, and all these elements, as I mentioned earlier on, are from the Wedding Mockup Scene Creator from the Design Cuts Marketplace. And now what I want to do is hold the Shift key and select both of these folders because we have a card folder and an effects folder. So I'm going to select both of those, click, hold the Shift key, and then drop them into my document. Now press Command Control tilde to come over to this other window and close it. Okay, so as you can see, guys, we have this nice looking card mockup here. And as you might have guessed, we're going to be putting our flattened artwork right here on this front card. But the only problem is that this card is horizontal and ours is more vertical. So we're going to need to make a few adjustments there to make it work. All right, so I'm just going to quickly just change the name here of these folders just to make it all consistent. Come inside the card folder and double click this first smart object. Now you will now be inside of the mockup here. This is basically just inside of the card, but we actually have to go even one level further. So find the layer that has the artwork for the main card itself, and then double click on that to go inside. You can ignore this, choose Don't Resolve or Cancel. It's just basically saying that we don't have the fonts. And I'm going to zoom out a bit, collapse that folder, and now, as you might have guessed, we want to come back to our flat artwork here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is hold the Shift key and drag and drop this into this file. Press Command Control T on the keyboard, hold Control and click on the image, and then choose Rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise. Now before applying the changes, I want to move this in a little bit. So move your cursor over any of the four corners and drag in while holding Alt, Option, and Shift, and just scale it down until it just about fits perfectly, and then press Return on the keyboard. Now you guys can delete these files or just keep them in there. Whatever you want to do is fine, but we don't really need them. All we need is this. So now press Command Control S to save it, and then Command Control W to close out of the window, and you will now see our invitation design on this card mockup. So let's move on and customize this a little bit more. I'm now going to double click on the Smart Object layer below, which is just filled with this solid pink color. And from here I'm going to come up to the File menu, and we're going to come down to Place Embedded. Now we're going to go back to the same flower bouquet that we used before earlier on in the tutorial and the invitation design itself. Alright, so select Flower Bouquet 10, click Place, and then this will be imported as a smart object. So I'm just going to move it up here to the upper left hand corner, maybe scale it down a bit while holding Shift, and then press Return. Press Command Control J to duplicate it, Command Control in the left bracket to move it down, then press Command Control T, and then just hold the Shift key and move this down a bit. Okay, so now it's behind the original copy. Now you can tap it down a little bit further, maybe move it in a bit too so it's not, perfect. And then what I want to do is select both of these layers, clicking on them while holding Shift, and press Command Control J to duplicate them both. Press Command in the left bracket twice to move both copies down below the original two. Press Command-Control-T to do a free transform. Hold the Control key, click on the image, and choose Flip Horizontal. And then hold the Shift key, and slide these copies over to the right. Now I'm going to select copy 3 here, press Command-Control-T, and then drag out while holding the Shift key just to scale it up. And I'm going to make it nice and big in the background here, and then do the same thing for copy 2. Press Command-Control-T, scale it up, and maybe offset it a little bit, play around with the positioning, and just try to fill in any large gaps here. Now we're going to turn off this effect layer with the pink so that we just have a transparent background, and then press Command-Control-S to save it, and once it's finished, Command-Control-W to close the tab. And now, as you can see, we have a nice floral pattern on the inside part of our envelope. Now let's go ahead and customize the envelope color itself. So select the Smart Object layer just below, hold the Alt Option key, and click on the adjustment layer icon, and now choose Solid Color. Now for this, I want to check off this box that says Use Previous Layer to create clipping mask, and then click OK. Now for the fill, I'll type in the hex value C8C0AA, which is this nice kind of cream color here. Go ahead and click OK, and you should now see that you have a clipping mask applied to ensure that this adjustment layer is only affecting the envelope. Now once you've got that all set up, we're going to go ahead and save it, Command-Control-S, and then Command-Control-W to close out and return to our main mockup. Alright, and you can also go ahead and close this flattened version here. And here we are. We're back in our main file, so I'll collapse that card folder. But there's one problem. We want to rotate this and maybe scale it a bit, just so that it is a little bit easier to read. So I'm just going to zoom out here and make my window a little bit larger, select the card group folder, and press Command-Control-T. Now what I'm going to do is just move my cursor over any of the 4 corners and rotate it clockwise a bit. Alright, and then we can move it up slightly. See how this looks, maybe rotate a little bit more. And let's also make it bigger by moving our cursor over any of the 4 corners and dragging outwards while holding Alt, Option, and Shift. Alright, somewhere about there looks pretty good. And then I'm just going to kind of tap it over and up a little bit so that the card is basically in the center. Now once you're happy with the size and placement, just press Return on the keyboard to apply the changes. Let's go ahead and customize this scene a little bit more. I'm going to come up to the File menu and choose Open. And now let's go ahead and locate the earrings PSD from the wedding mockup. Go ahead and open that up. And then what I want to do is once again move this tab to the side so that I can see both of my documents here. And I'm going to select this whole group folder and just drag and drop it here into my main mockup, and then you can go ahead and close it. Now for this, we want to make these earrings a little bit larger, so press Command-Control-T, click and drag out while holding Alt, Option, and Shift on the keyboard. And then let's go ahead and maybe move these over a bit, somewhere about there, and we can just rotate them slightly as well. Now before we customize the earrings, let's just go into the group folder for a second, select the shadow layer, and then increase the opacity a little bit more, maybe to about 50. 4850 looks pretty good. Alright, maybe even a little bit lower, say like 45. Okay, and then double click on the earring Smart Object. Now once you're inside of this file, you'll notice that you have a couple of adjustment layers here with masks applied. Now the first thing we're going to do is turn off the curves adjustment because we don't want those bright highlights. And then the next thing we're going to do is use the selection from our photo filter adjustment layer. So what we're going to do is select the mask, hold the Command-Control key, and then click on it, come down to the adjustment layer icon, and add a hue saturation adjustment layer. Alright, and all we're going to do here is increase the hue to about 12 or 13 just to make it more of a gold color instead of a rose gold, or remove some of that pink tint in there. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to do is select the hue saturation adjustment layer just above it, and we're going to change some of these parameters as well. Let's make the hue plus 45, and then we can make the saturation about -14, and we'll move the lightness slider down to -22. Okay, so you now have this kind of dark yellow color. Now go ahead and press Command-Control-S to save it, and then once that's done, Command-Control-W to close the tab, and you'll now see your updated earrings in the mockup here. And you'll notice that now they match the same yellow color that we used for our invitation. Let's come back up to the File menu now and add some more objects. Alright, this time I'm going to open the branch PSD. Open this up here. All right, press F just to change your screen view if you need to. And then click and drag this whole branch folder into your document, and then you can close it. Press F again. And now what I want to do is move this branch down to the lower right-hand corner. So I'm going to press Command-Control-T, move this over here, rotate it clockwise, somewhere about there. And then you can just kind of play around a little bit with the size and positioning as well. All right, now let's go ahead and add one more object here. Come back up to File, choose Open. All right, and now we're going to select our bead PSD file. We'll get this nice necklace in here, these beads, they look pretty cool. And all I'm going to do, as you might have guessed, is press F to change the screen view, click and drag this whole folder into my mockup, close the beads, and then I want to make sure that the beads are on top of the card so that it overlaps. Now I'm going to press Command-Control-T to do a free transform, move this over here, and then scale it up just by clicking and dragging outwards while holding the Shift key. Now I'm going to move it down a bit, maybe rotate it slightly, and just experiment with the positioning here a little bit. Okay, maybe move it over. Somewhere about there looks pretty good, just so we get a little bit of an overlap on the card, but we don't want to, cover up any of the text. But doing this will just help us to get a little bit more depth out of the design. All right, and now once you've done that, come inside the Beads folder and double-click on the Bead Smart object. Now, once we're inside here, we can begin customizing this file a little bit more. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn off the visibility of the hue saturation adjustment layer here, but we're still going to use this mask to make a selection. So just like before, click on the mask while holding the Command-Control key to activate a selection around it. Come down here to the adjustment layer icon and add a solid color adjustment layer. Now we're going to enter the hex value 386A52. Then go ahead and click OK and change the blend mode from normal to, let's try multiply. All right, and now I'm just going to save this file and close it. All right, and now you can come in here, you can make any other adjustments you want. You can, rotate the card, rotate any of these objects or elements in the mockup here for our scene. All right, and there you go, guys. That's looking pretty cool, and that just about wraps up our tutorial for today. I've walked you through the process of designing a nice, clean, elegant wedding invitation, and then building a scene to make the presentation look even better. Now, we've done all this just using a handful of free typefaces, some cool mock-up elements from the Design Cuts Marketplace, and of course, a few beautiful floral watercolor illustrations from Graphic Box. Now, all of these and more, including the Mali script font, are available in the Create and Make Design Bundle, featuring best-selling fonts, brushes, custom shapes, watercolor illustrations, and much more. So I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial and hopefully learned a few new tips and tricks along the way. As always, we would love to see what kind of things you guys create with these elements and with these techniques on your own. So be sure to share that with us and let us know how you liked the tutorial. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Eric Vasquez, and we'll see you next time.